Uh, Welcome everyone. Today we are going to discuss about hacking web servers, which is as part of module 13 of the CH course. The participants who have joined us after attending this session, they should be able to describe the web server concepts, and after having the hands-on labs, they should be able to also perform various web server attacks. And by using the attack methodology that we would discuss. Then we will also discuss on some of the tools, countermeasures, some management concept, patch management concepts, and also some security tools that can be used with regards to web server hacking. And like after completing it, some of the methodologies and steps can be made part of pen testing as well. So what is a web server? Okay, it's like, you know, an application that makes your web application available to the world. It is usually the machine that is connected to internet. In response to DNS request, it sends back the file, okay, as requested by a client or as a user who is using the web browser. So on the left hand side, if you see, if a person is using a web browser on a computer or a laptop or even a mobile, when they want to, browse a website, they can give that particular address in the address bar of the browser, and the request is sent to a server. Now, what this server actually has an additional specialized software which is meant for serving the files by combining inputs, from an index file, or it may be a small plain HTML file as well, or it may have some dynamic elements which requires some kind of background processing. Then that particular processing can happen with the help of a runtime, which can be which is probably created in PHP or Python or Perl, any other scripting language. And then once the output is combined with the help of HTML and this dynamic content, then it is sent back to the web server, the software. Okay, here the server as on the box means that it's a machine. It's a computer which is connected to internet. So once the response is processed by a web server, it is sent back to the browser of the user. So this is a very generic example. Okay. Now let's have a look on the market share of very famous web servers which are there in the market. So we have Apache, then we have Microsoft IIS, then we have servers from Sun, then Nginx, Google, NCSA, and others. Why this is important to have a look at the market share? Because we always want to know as an attacker that which all web servers are there, which are readily available for us to attack. Okay. And attackers also, like who have malicious intentions, they also do the same thing. So as you can see, this share of Apache has drastically reduced after August 2012, and up till 2016 it decreased, and then slightly started increasing. The web server that has gained the market share is Nginx. Okay, and after year 2018, the use of Microsoft has gone down. So this kind of an analysis would help you in building the skill set which is required as per the market conditions as well. Okay. So let's now discuss as to why these web servers are hacked. So first and foremost reason is that they are readily available on the internet. and there can be multiple attack vectors possible for this. Generally, these servers usually, they host a content which is publicly available, which has to be publicly available. Okay, which does not have much importance with respect to the internal network of a company, and that's why it has to be accessible over the internet. And they themselves can be vulnerable, or the websites or the web applications that they host or that they serve, they can be vulnerable. Then usually in a multi-tier architecture, applications make use of backend databases as well, backends and databases. So the databases can also be vulnerable. So the attack surface is quite large and it is available on the internet. That's why attackers might use them to gain some kind of an access, login access as a normal user, and then escalate their privileges as admin accounts by making use of some kind of a hole which is there in the security or the firewall to gain access also sometimes into the internal network of a company. So we'll discuss more on this. But these are like general reasons as to why web servers are hacked. So some of the vulnerabilities regarding web servers are the server settings themselves. And there are times when these security settings are misconfigured. There are cases when people do not keep strong passwords because of poor password security policy in an organization. And sometimes there are websites which do not have any kind of an authentication, sometimes plain text authentications. There are times when unnecessary services are running in case of web servers. So that is also a vulnerability. And sometimes applications which is being served by a web server, those applications themselves are vulnerable. They have bugs, and because of that, those bugs are created by some of the error or a flaw which was caused by while a developer was coding for them, right? Then we have the server themselves. If they are unpatched, they have not been keeping up with the patch notifications that come to them. So they are unpatched, and that's why these vulnerabilities are there. And sometimes, for permissions related to directories, the folders which are there and the files in those folders are not proper. They're not as per the standards, and they basically cause themselves to be a vulnerability again. What happens after a successful web hack happens? Okay, attackers usually gain access to the sensitive data. As I said, that usually these applications are connected to some kind of a backend database, and for maintaining users for your applications, you have to persist the data in one or the other way. So if an attacker gets an access to web application, or by some way, by using some kind of an SQL injection or something, if in case of RDBMS, then they can have an access to sensitive data. Also, usually web servers are installed on some other server, okay, wherein other user accounts are probably used. So an attacker can also gain access to these user accounts. Then there are times when you would see after gaining an access, people try to modify some websites. So which can be a matter of embarrassment for a company, or sometimes it can be it cannot become a matter of good faith for users also. So, and sometimes website is not become, it will become unusable for their users, right? So there are times when people gain access to the web server, and then they launch the attack to the other connected systems. So there are secondary attacks, and there are times when one web server or one particular system is not only hosting a web server, but other system services are also running. So in those cases, after successful web hack, people can, or attackers can, compromise those services as well. say server is running a web server as well as an FTP server, then people can the attackers can get access to the FTP accounts also. So let's discuss some of the attacks. So first example is a DNS attack. Now on the internet, there is no direct relationship between the web server and the client in the diagram that I showed you. However, what happens is that the request actually goes through DNS service server. Okay. So in that mapping between the domain name and the IP addresses are kept. And if there is some malicious activity that you can perform on the DNS itself, okay, such as a DNS server hijacking attack or an amplification attack, then in that way, a web server can also get compromised. So in case of DNS server hijacking, you can redirect web queries to an imposter web server. Say you created a clone of the actual web server, and then by doing something, with the DNS cache or the table that is maintained, which maintains the mapping. So in that case, if you modify the details there, then victim can actually go to the uh, new copy of the web server that you are hosting. Okay. And similarly, like in conjunction with this, a similar type of a little different type of an attack like denial of service can also happen, whether it is a distributed denial or a denial of service, wherein it needs to deal with either the size of the packet or the volume of the traffic that you are sending to the DNS. So if because people do not usually remember the IP addresses, and they are quite dependent on DNS servers. So if you bring down a DNS server with a DDoS or a DOS, then obviously access to the website can be compromised. Okay. Then we have HTTP based attacks. So you would find that there are two. One is response splitting attack, and one is HTTP cache poisoning attack. In case of HTTP response splitting attack, attacker inserts the content into HTTP header section of the request, and then which actually makes the server to respond, twice. And there are two responses that are generated, and it generally so attacker can make use of one response, and one response can go to the victim, right? So then it generally happens when the input values by the developers were not properly sanitized. Means if you are inputting a form and you give some kind of a value, some garbage value, okay, garbled value, or some value which can confuse the web server. And while someone was writing the code for it, they did not properly took care of sanitizing those inputs. So in that case, a response splitting attack can happen. So as far as cache poisoning attack is there, so you actually go and manipulate the browser's cache itself, the victim's browser cache, and you put some invalid data into it, and which rather than which actually causes the victim's browser to navigate or go to uh, a web server which is the rogue web server and not the actual web server. So in that case, and it is usually done by way of HTTP response splitting, which we have discussed like above. Okay. Then there is an attack called directory traversal attack. So as you see in the diagram, so this is just a normal generic layout in a Linux system. Like on top, it is actually the root directory, and in that these are just three directories I have listed for as an example, but there are others. Like in Kali we have wait in Kali this is a Linux system, right? So if I go to root and I try to list, there are many. Okay, so you have temp, you have var, you have usr. So I've taken just one example. So within the root, you have var, you have etc and user. So generally, you would see that var has a triple W name of a directory, and within that www there is a directory named HTML, and within that HTML directory there is HTML page. Okay, wherein JavaScript is being used, HTML is being used, links to the CSS files are also given. Okay, so what happens in case of web applications, that there's access to this www directory, and down on the other directories or the subdirectories, the access is limited to the web server, but the access is not given actually to other directories. Okay, like within the USR directory there is a bin directory, and there are some command utilities, right? Within etc there are some configuration related details. So if an attacker in some way is able to use some or the other vulnerability in a web server, then it can gain the attacker can gain access to these other directories like etc and user, and can pull out some details of files about the system on which the web site is running. So that is called directory traversal attack. Okay. Then we have some additional web-based attacks like man-in-the-middle attack. In man-in-the-middle attack, the valid session of a user who is already connected to a legitimate web server is basically sniffed or hijacked. Okay, by a person who is an intermediary between the actual client and the actual server. In case of phishing, this is like some common attack you would have already seen, and we have discussed this also a lot of time, that you might get an email with saying that so and so account of yours is actually compromised, and we are sending you a URL. You click on that URL and change your user details. Okay, then you click on that URL and you go to a false website and you give your user credentials. This is generally this happens generally in case of uh, scenarios wherein attacker would like to gain the details of your credit card or banking account or something like that. Okay, then there are attacks called password cracking, wherein it could make use of you can basically guess the passwords, or you can make use of dictionaries to do a dictionary attack, or maybe brute force with the help of a very very large list. You try to gain access to the web server by using any user credentials. Then there are with the web server itself, if there have been some misconfiguration related vulnerabilities, then you can exploit those and do that these kind of web attacks. Then as in case of a web application, they always remain connected to a database backend, so you can perform SQL injection to pull out details from the database as well. And then if the web server obviously is hosting some kind of an application, that application might also have some kind of bugs, and by using the faults or the errors because of those bugs, if they haven't been patched and upgraded, then you can make use of that by using some exploit which is available on the internet by doing application based attacks. So let us discuss the attack methodology. What generally happens when we are supposed to attack as a pen tester also a web application. So as part of first step, you actually start with gathering the information about a website, wherein you would probably using your OSINT skills or footprinting skills. You first gather info, then do some footprinting. Probably also you can mirror the whole website for offline analysis, and then additionally you can perform scans and send probes to the actual machine by obviously using the methods so that you don't raise any kind of a flag with IDSs or some other logging mechanism or other defense measures that people have kept. And after that, you can either perform session hijacking or do password hacking. So this is the generic attack methodology that you would see in case of hacking web servers. Let us discuss them in more details. Some of the tools you have for information gathering uh, are some of the websites that you can use. So some websites like whois.net, alexa.net you can use to gather some basic information about a website. Then you can actually be part of the news groups and news sites to gather other general information while before actually hacking a web server. And as far as gaining information on user accounts is concerned, you can find out about the employees who are working in a company and then follow them on social media or in forums that what they are communicating and all that to collect as much as information as possible. Let's take one example of Alexa. Okay, I'll just show it on the screen. So on Alexa, when I went, they have like tools. Under the tools, they have free tools. Okay, in that you can do some analysis on website traffic statistics. So I did that on a website called CNN.com. Okay, so you can see some of the keyword opportunities breakdown is given. Okay, and it has also been compared with other similar websites like NY Times, Fox News, CNBC. Okay, then their 90-day trend is given. Okay, and this site actually ranks number 63 in the global internet engagement. Some of the top keywords. Okay, some of the features are like usually meant for SEO purpose, so they might not be useful from the perspective of an attacker. Okay, then you can see how social wherein how many total articles are there, what is the average engagement that you can probably find out. Okay, some of the popular articles that are there, usually when you navigate to the articles you will find some of the other people are commenting on it. Maybe some of them are employees, some of them are internal, you can find that out. Okay, some top social statistics also. Some of the traffic sources from which these websites this website gets some source traffic from USA Today, NY Times, Washington Post. Okay, other referral websites are also given. Then you can also focus on the geography. Okay, so from where the users are actually coming onto this website, you can see like from India it's like 2% of the site traffic is from India. Okay, other is from Canada and US. So generally you would see a user spending around 4 minutes or 45 something seconds. So this website is quite useful when you are planning to launch an attack. Probably you would plan to keep your engagement with the site within these kind of limits, so that it doesn't raise any suspicious concern towards the owners. Okay, so maybe you can, while spoofing, you can probably take an IP to one particular geographical region and all that. So it all depends on your creativity, but this is a website wherein you can do some initial analysis on that. Okay. Similarly, you can go into social media account. You can create social media and forum accounts, and then have and start communicating there. Use the social engineering skills to get more details. Okay. Then we have some of the tools for doing footprinting. Okay. So there is a tool called Telnet, which can be used. Usually, you would find that Telnet services are not available. But on the vulnerable web servers, if someone has left that service on, then it can help you by using a Telnet client. You can actually gain basic system information. Okay. Then we have a lot of time discussed Nmaps, and we have also taken examples and their scans. So using nmap, we can probe for open ports and services. There is also a tool called ID serve, which helps in examining the web server, and it also can run vulnerability scans for us. Then there is a tool called HTTP Recon, which performs like several footprinting tests. It's like you just give it a URL, and additionally, it will do some tests, and we'll do some additional probes by itself, the way it's done by Nikto, right? So it can do that. Nikto actually does some pen tests also while doing their scans, but Recon would do limited ones. Then there is a even a web-based footprinting tool called Netcraft that you can make use of. Okay, let's take this example also. So I go to Netcraft, and then I'll use the same website. Okay, cnn.com. So here, yeah, let's do some search DNS. Oh, sorry. And you can see that it has brought actually 34 results, showing first 20 on this page. And to one particular site or a domain also, you can see that the operating system itself is being reported, like it is being hosted on a Linux. Go.cnn is hosted on a Linux. Okay, then it is reporting some as unknown. I don't know, maybe when we actually, there's a site report link also available, and maybe it has some information on that site report. Okay, if we go to money.cnn.com's site report, then we can have a look. Like it is giving you a background. Then so generally you would see that it has a risk rating given. In this case, it's not present. Okay, then you have the name server names, and we have discussed other tools as well in previous sessions. These are the ones that are a little different. Okay, and it has some link to the virus total also. Okay, and it has given you the IPv4 address and IPv6 address. Okay, then breakdown. Okay, IP range breakdown, IPv6 range breakdown, and then some geographical location. Then you have hosting histories as to in past how often this website has changed the IP addresses. Okay, then you have a policy framework and other demarked. Okay, so this is how you can actually perform the basic footprinting, web-based footprinting on a website using Netcraft. Okay. Now, for offline analysis for doing websites, you might have to sometimes download the files which are hosted by the web servers. So, or some other related files. Then you can make use of these tools like mirroring tools like wget, httrack, rsync. Again, it's like multi-platform. I think rsync is both for Linux and Windows. Then you have a tool called Black Widow, and then you have a tool called Web Copier. So you can explore this, read about them, and like with respect to tools, I would say though these tools are there mentioned in the guides. Okay, I am highlighting the ones that are generally unpopular, uh, like being used by the community, and but when you actually go through the tools, Use the tools that you find yourself to be most comfortable with. Okay, and which gels with your personality, basically how you work with the tool, right? So try to get acquainted with these tools as much as possible. Read about them and use the ones that suit you better. Then some of the vulnerability scanning tools are Scan My Server, Web Inspector. Web Inspector is by HP, I think. Then you have Sucuri, then Detectify, and then Site Guarding. Okay, so you can scan the web servers for vulnerabilities using these. Yeah, by also using the flags in Nmap, also you can do that. Okay, and using Nessus also you can do that. Okay, but there are some additional ones. Then some of the hijacking techniques that you can make use of. So if you try inject the client-side scripts which can be viewed by other users, that particular technique is called cross-site scripting. And if in a way you try to steal the session cookie by sniffing on the communication between a client and a server, that is called sidejacking. So that is also one good hijacking technique. Then there is a technique called fixation, in which attacker actually sets up a connection, a valid connection with the server, and then uh, sends that some kind of a link to a user, wherein user would click it and will navigate to the legitimate server. In between the session, hijacker would actually make use of that valid session, and the user won't actually get a valid response. So this is called fixation. So then you can also use malwares, various type of malwares to steal the session cookies. So all these hijacking techniques that you can make use of. Some of the examples that you will be able to see. Uh, Firefox has an extension, okay, to intercept these cookies from sites like Facebook and Twitter. Yeah. It's called Firesheep. I have not used it, but just try see and whether it is a valid way of actually sniffing on cookies or not. Okay, then there is a not a web application, but it's an Android app called WhatsApp Sniffer, which is designed to sniff messages from users who are using this application. Okay, then there is a sidejacking tool which is used for pen testing, just cookie catcher. You can make use of that also. Some of the hijacking tools: Firesheep, Cookie Catcher, Wireshark. We have taken various examples of Wireshark and Burp Suite. Okay, and Wireshark's, the main thing about Wireshark is that you should be quite conversant with the filters that need to be used with respect to protocols, and then uh, the request, how to look for text, how to read data, how to read values of the flags, how to inspect the data packets, right? And then in case of Burp Suite, we have discussed for till now we have discussed two, like intercepting, doing launching it in a proxy mode, and setting up a connection between a browser and this, how to intercept the request, how to modify, send, capture a request or a post request, and then capture it in between, modify it, uh, and then help with the help of a repeater send it. Okay, and then take the response before actually forwarding it to back to the user, right? That kind of example we have seen. Then there is a tool called jhijack. So please have a look and read about these ones. Now let's discuss some of the countermeasures that are available against hacking web servers. So first is to have a policy against patches, for maintaining the patches. Okay. So yes, in various organizations, there must be a patch schedule. Okay, so based on that stringent patch schedule, we need to like patch our servers, and always we before blindly applying those patches, we need to research on those patches, and always We need to verify the sources from which the patches have come. Then before applying these patches, we need to first do the backup of all data. And usually these patches are first deployed in an environment which is a non-production environment, like which is kind of a testing environment. And after patch actually passes the gates, the quality gates in a test environment, then those patches are applied to the production environment. And always have a backup or a backup plan. Okay, in case of something going wrong, these patches should you should be able to reverse the changes which are done by the patches. Okay, then let's discuss some of the policies regarding securing the web servers. So there are majorly three. Like you need to take care of the policies with respect to protocols, user accounts, and files. So in case of protocols, you have to block unnecessary ports. So you yourself, as part of the defense, you yourself can actually do vulnerability scans or port scans yourself to find out insecure ports and insecure protocols such as telnet or ftp, because why they're insecure is because they communicate in plain text. So you can basically avoid these or use their secure versions, and always use tunneling and encryption versions of these protocols or other protocols. Then with respect to user accounts, you have to disable unnecessary accounts. There are times when people have left an organization, even then those accounts are lying unused, right? That happens quite a lot. Then you have a strong, always whenever you make passwords for users, then ensure that it follows a very stringent password policy, whatever is there defined in a company. Then always run processes with least required privileges, so that someone cannot actually go and traverse the files that I showed to you, like which is are the files which are not meant for the web server to have an access to, right? Then with respect to files, it is always important that you disable services that provide directory listing. Otherwise, someone might be able to actually use directory listing tools such as Dearbuster or GoBuster to list the files which are how they are laid out and how they are present, right? And which all files are present. Actually, download them also sometimes. So always disable services that provide these directory listings. Move then if there are someone finds out that there are some unrelated files in the web server, so it's best to move those files into some other secure directories. With respect to monitoring the web server, yes, it is one of the good countermeasures that you can actually monitor the web server for changes. And with respect to Microsoft Windows, I think you can make use of a tool called Website CTS. And on IS-based servers, you can also make use of a tool called URL scan, which can actually, before any potentially harmful HTTP request reaches on the web server, it will actually filter that before, or the application, right? So as far as laying out these systems is concerned, okay, you normally follow some of the other architecture to put web server into a company. Okay, this is one diagram. Actually, there are two. Okay, so these are just two approaches that I have shown in these diagrams. In the first one, you see that the outside internet is actually connecting to a firewall, and that firewall is giving access directly to the corporate LAN, and also it is giving direct access to a demilitarized zone. In now you see that servers like www is the web server, and the FTP is also there running in the demilitarized zone. But this firewall is actually also directly linked or is for the corporate LAN network which is there. This is one approach of laying out systems with the help of only one central firewall which is connected to internet. Now in the second approach, you would see that the publicly external or external resources which are usually owned by the company, before getting connected to the public internet, they have been protected with a firewall. Okay, and for other systems like which are there internally owned by the company, they have more one more firewall, internal firewall. Okay, so the one which is outside the firewall, which is outside and connected to public internet, is called perimeter firewall. So all resources that are need to be available for public are kept in this zone. This is called demilitarized zone. But it can happen like if these web servers get compromised, then they may just because they have some kind of a connection to the internal company, or there might be some security hole which can be bypassed or which can be made use of by the attacker. So that's why it's always best to actually keep up with the upgrades and stringently follow the policies that are designed for the companies. Okay. So with respect to having a policy, with respect to response splitting and cache poisoning, you can have these policies. Regularly update software, okay, and use these web vulnerability scanners to test your systems. Okay, and always keep unique IP addresses. Then don't ever allow carriage returns or line feed data to go to your web applications. Some of the general policies with respect to permissions, session ID tracking, always maintain some kind of access control list, uh, perform regular auditing, host your web server in a standalone mode. Not like that the same server is a web server and the same server is an FTP server, because that can result into an easy lateral attack or a secondary attack, right? And with respect to scripts, so as I mentioned that there are various scripts that people can make use of, like Perl, PHP, Python, or ASP, JavaScript. So they themselves this if they haven't been properly used, and developer might actually make use of some methodology which is which can actually result in some kind of a flaw and then result into a bug, which can be made use of. So, or some stringent development policies can also be applied in case of protecting the web servers. Now, with respect to systems patch management, we need to follow, patching policies which need to be applied first on the test system, and obviously we need to have a patch schedule, a good patch schedule. Then it's best to, with respect to applications or the services that we are using, it is best to sign up for notifications so that whenever new patches release, we are notified on time. And because if we do not apply those patches in time, sometimes there are hot fixes available that even when the web applications are running, during that time itself on the live systems we can do patches, so that the applications are not vulnerable anymore. Okay, and it is quite difficult and tiring to do it manually. That's why you can make use of a patch management tool. Okay, but always before installing these patches, always verify the source, so that you don't get a, or you don't apply a patch from a rogue user or a malicious user. Some of the patching tools that help you in achieving that speed and drudgery, removing that drudgery, is like these are the tools such as GFI, LandGuard. Then you have Secuna CSI. You have MASS S360 Patch Analyzer. Then there is a tool called a Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, Security Manager Plus, Prism Suite. So these are some of the patching tools that can be made use of as part of system patch management workflows. Then we have some security tools. So with respect to like they can be classified as scanners or compliance tools and testing tools. So there is a tool called NS okay, which is for Windows, and it can be made use uh, of to do port scanning. Then there is a tool called Saint Scanner, so it can help you in doing scans like TCP and UDP scans for services, as well as send probes for vulnerabilities. Okay. Then there is a tool called NStalker that also helps in probing further for vulnerabilities and other features of the services that are running on the target. Then there is a tool called NetIQ, which is a compliance tool. It can test a system for whether the policies have been applied properly or not. So generally, these policies are defined with the help of tools, and then you can test these policies with the help of another tool. Then there is also a tool called Retina CS, and which additionally can provide patch management and reporting. Other than the compliance, also it can do patching and reporting. Then there is to test the websites. There is a tool called Web Inspect. I think it's by HP. And to test the whole application, like from end to end, you can use of a tool called W3AF also. So whatever we have discussed till now, like all of the methods and the types, okay, and the techniques which we have discussed, like with respect to DNS or web server, they all can be properly used as part of pen testing as well while hacking the web server. So the first step is always to identify. So you can make use of social engineering techniques, other OS and recon and footprinting methodologies. You can look for website-based tools like Netcraft or OS database or other tools to first identify about the target. Then additionally, to collect more details, you can crawl as part of probe. You can crawl, you can do port scanning, okay, and you can also traverse and list the directories on the target server. And after you have collected all of these details, you can do attacks, like you can do MITM, you can make use of exploits and run those exploits on the target, or you can do attacks like session hijacking and others. So we have reached the end of this particular session. So let's discuss what we have discussed so far. Like we'll just summarize it. So these to maintain the communication on the internet, web servers are necessary, and web servers are very critical for internet security. However, web servers are vulnerable, and they require regular patching and updates from web vendors. Uh, Web servers which are compromised, they can pose a risk to LAN and also to normal internet users. Okay, so LAN is generally with respect to employees who are using the internet. Okay, then published vulnerabilities and their patches over the years, they provide a lot of information for the attackers to plan their attack. There are a lot of tools and exploit codes to assist the attackers in compromising a web server. Countermeasures that we have discussed, like with respect to web server hacking, they include scanning tools, patching tools, updates, right? Points with respect to restriction of anonymous access, then traffic screening and monitoring tools, as well as filtering with the help of firewalls. So these are the points, and if you have some additional questions with respect to web server hacking, which we will actually discuss in further modules also, and there is a lab too.